I wasn't supposed to be home until Monday morning, but the retreat ended a day-early storm rolling in, and I missed my own kitchen. Missed my coffee pot, if I'm honest. The bus dropped me off a few blocks down, and I walked the rest of the way, bag slung over my shoulder, still humming the last hymn we sang. When I unlocked the front door, I noticed it right away, the faint smell of paint and something chemical. I blinked at the faint haze in the air and called out, "Hello." No answer. I turned the corner toward the hallway and froze. My mattress was in the hallway. Not just the sheets or pillows, my whole mattress dragged out like trash. My bedroom door stood half open, and through it, I saw Malia standing on a drop cloth, holding a paint roller. My rose-colored walls were now half covered in flat, bland gray. Cardboard boxes were stacked near the closet. One of them was open, and I could see my Sunday hats shoved in beside power cords and what looked like a speaker system. Malia didn't look startled. She didn't even put the roller down. "Oh," she said, almost cheerfully. "You weren't supposed to be home yet." I didn't speak. I couldn't. Not yet. She kept going like she was giving a tour. "We're just preparing to move in. It's easier to get started while the space is clear, you know. We didn't think you'd mind." Just then, Brent walked in behind me, holding a roll of papers. "I brought the layout mock-ups," he said, barely glancing my way. "Thought we'd knock down that closet wall, open the space up." I stared at him, at both of them. My coat still clung damp to my shoulders, my fingers curled tight around the retreat pamphlet I hadn't even unpacked. They were standing in my bedroom. My walls, my curtains, my floor. I didn't remember walking backward, but the next thing I knew, I was back in the kitchen, reaching for the coffee filter like muscle memory, and realizing I didn't know where they'd put it. This house still creaks in the same places it did 30 years ago. Floorboards in the hall, the pipe under the bathroom sink, the back porch step that always groans in protest. Lyle and I built it from the foundation up. No contractors. Just his hands, my planning, and a stubborn will between us. Every window frame, every cabinet, every nail it carries our history. After he passed, everyone asked if I'd sell. Said the upkeep would be too much. Said it was too big for one woman. But I never could leave it. I kept the garden small, the bills manageable, and the bedroom just the way he left it. Until now. Brent and Malia came to me 6 months ago. Faces drawn and hopeful. Their landlord was raising rent again, and they just needed a few weeks to regroup. I told them, of course. What kind of mother says no to her own son? They moved in fast. First with a weekend bag, then boxes, then their dog, then Malia's work monitor on the kitchen table. But I didn't complain. I cooked for 3. I stayed quiet when they took the guest room and the den. I never thought to ask how long a few weeks meant. This morning, still shaken, I tried to find the mail. The bin I usually leave near the side door was empty. Then I saw it on the dining table, an envelope addressed to Malia. Forwarded here. With a bright yellow sticker stamped permanent change of address. I checked again. Another one? And another. Even Brent's credit card statement now had my address printed on it. They hadn't just moved in. They'd declared it. I sat down at the table with that stack of mail and stared at the name on each line. Not mine, not Lyle's. Just theirs. I took a pen from the drawer and found an old yellow sticky note. I wrote 2 words on it and placed it on top of the stack. Explain this. But when I walked to my bedroom door to slide it under the door, wasn't there. They had taken it off the hinges. The door wasn't broken, it was neatly removed, like they'd done it on purpose. The hinges were still clean, the screws stacked in a little dish on my nightstand. Inside the room barely resembled mine. My quilts were gone. The ones I made over winters with Lyle curled on the couch, watching late-night weather reports. Replaced by a white comforter from some catalog I'd never heard of. The lace-edged pillowcases my mother embroidered, gone. I opened the closet. Empty hangers. A few of Brent's suits already hanging. One of Malia's pastel sweaters still had a price tag. I opened the small chest under the window. My journals, my photos. The pressed rose Lyle gave me on our 20th anniversary. All gone. I didn't say a word. Just turned and walked out. Down the hall, the photo wall had changed. Where there used to be family memories, picnics, graduations, Lyle in that ridiculous fishing hat, now hung framed phrases in cursive fonts. Live simply, bless this mess, and be present. Not one face, not one name. I kept walking until I reached the garage. The smell of cardboard and dust hit me before the light even flicked on. I scanned the shelves and the far corner past the lawn tools. There, tucked behind the old Christmas boxes, sat a stack of bins. One caught my eye. It was labeled in thick marker "Donate, Calvina's." I pulled off the lid. There they were, folded, stuffed, stripped of meaning. My wedding quilt. My baby book. The old coffee mug Lyle had chipped and refused to throw away. Taped at the top was a note in Malia's handwriting. Let's clear space. We'll take these next trip. I didn't cry. My hands trembled, but I didn't cry. I lifted the quilt out, shook off the dust, and draped it over my shoulders. Then I reached into the bottom of the bin and pulled out the old wooden frame with our wedding photo. Lyle's grin crooked and stubborn. They'd tried to box him up, but he was still here. And so was I. Back in the house, I picked up my phone and called Georgia. The smell hit me, first garlic and roasted vegetables, something rich and carefully prepared. I hadn't been asked to help. Hadn't even known there was a dinner. I found out by accident when I came into the kitchen to boil water for coffee and saw Malia layering lasagna into a glass pan. She looked up startled for half a second, then smiled. Oh, we're having a few people over tonight. Brent's old college friends are in town. It's just a small thing. I nodded, said nothing, and backed out of the kitchen. She hadn't made coffee. She'd cleared the machine off the counter entirely. My old kettle sat under the sink like it no longer belonged. That evening, I watched the guests arrive. 3 couples dressed for comfort, but carrying wine and laughter like accessories. They hugged Brent and Malia at the door, took their shoes off politely, and wandered into my living room like they'd always been welcome here. I sat on the back porch with a blanket over my knees and a cup of plain black coffee I'd brewed in a camping pot I found in the garage. The door behind me stayed closed. No one checked to see where I'd gone. Through the window, I could see Malia pointing out the dining room wall. We're thinking of knocking this down eventually, she said brightly. Open the space up. You know now that it's finally ours. They all murmured approval. Brent smiled like it was already true. I watched their silhouettes move through my space, heard their laughter rise above the clinking forks and wine glasses. I listened as someone complimented the flooring. Lyle installed himself with his bad knee and a level that barely worked. Malia replied, it had good bones, but we're modernizing. I finished my coffee. Then I stood, went inside, and took the framed photo of Lyle from the bookshelf. They hadn't touched that yet. Not yet. I set it by the kitchen window and whispered to him, you see all this, don't you? The porch light buzzed behind me as I opened the drawer and pulled out the deed. Georgia met me at the side entrance of the county courthouse, just like we used to do back when I brought in sack lunches for the clerks. Her hair had gone all silver, but her walk still had purpose in it. We didn't hug. We never had to. But she placed a steady hand on my elbow as she guided me through the security doors. I handed her the envelope I'd brought. Inside the original deed, a copy of my husband's will, and 3 utility bills, each one forwarded to Emsa Jameson at my address. She flipped through the pages in silence, her reading glasses slipping slightly down her nose. When she got to the 3rd bill, She exhaled through her teeth and tapped the paper. This isn't just a mail mix-up, Calvina. I nodded. I knew that. She sat back, crossed one leg over the other. You said they've been living there how long? 6 months this week. And no rent? None. She didn't write anything down. She didn't need to. They're building a case. They're going to claim tenancy. If you don't act now, you'll be the one explaining why your name's on the deed, but theirs is on the lease they wrote themselves. I looked down at my hands. I didn't think it would get this far. They always think you won't fight, she said. Not unkindly. That's part of how it works. She reached into her tote and handed me a blank intake form and a pen. We'll get a petition filed for a formal removal. No drama, no shouting, just procedure. Outside, the wind had picked up, and the flag on the courthouse lawn snapped sharp against the pole. I signed the first line slowly, then the second, then the third. Georgia flipped to a fresh page. Start listing what's changed since they moved in. So I did. I told her about the missing quilts, the stripped walls, the door they took off its hinges, and the box in the garage labeled Donate. I paused, then added one more line. They took my name off the mailbox last Tuesday. I wasn't snooping. That part matters to me. The laptop was open on the dining table, humming quietly, screen still glowing. Brent had stepped outside to take a call. Malia was in the shower. I just needed to move it so I could set down the mail. That's all. But then I saw my name. Subject line refinance pathway, 60-day timeline, from a loan officer to Malia, CC'd to Brent. I clicked. There it was, loan documents, preliminary calculations, and a full workup with my address listed under property to be secured. And under ownership, Malia Jameson, primary. I scrolled down further, hands, cold chest hollowing. A thread of messages between them and the broker. Then a note, casual, written like someone picking out paint colors. We'll explore facility options for Calvina after closing. Brent's mom has mobility issues, so it's probably best long-term. I stopped breathing. They weren't just trying to stay. They were trying to take it. To sign it, claim it, and move me out like worn furniture. By the time Brent came back inside, I was gone. I didn't go far. Just around the block to the end of the cul-de-sac, where the streetlight flickered soft enough to hide me, I locked my car doors, pulled a quilt from the back seat, and curled into it like a shield. My purse rested on my lap, heavy not with money, but with the deed, my will, and the last photo I'd taken with Lyle. The silence in the car was thick, but it didn't hurt. Not like the silence in my own kitchen. Not like watching my name vanish from documents in the house I built. I stayed up most of the night going over every conversation I could remember. Every hint, every phrase that should have warned me, every time I chose to stay quiet. When the sun finally rose, it glinted off the dashboard, warm and clean. I sat up, adjusted my coat, and turned the key in the ignition. I had one more stop to make before heading home. The locksmith opened at 8. The locksmith didn't ask questions. He didn't need to. I showed him my ID, the deed, and handed over a check. He whistled low when he saw the faded photo of the original key still taped to the back of Lyle's toolbox. Been a while since these were changed, he said, almost respectfully. By 9, every lock on every door was new. I even had him install a second bolt on the back porch. Not because I feared them, because I wanted it to be clear this home answered to me. While he worked, I printed documents at the library, the deed, my notarized, will, the property tax history. I stapled them all into a folder and labeled it in bold black marker, occupant removal evidence. I slid it into the drawer under the silverware. Then I waited. They returned at 2:14 p.m. bags from the grocery store in Malia's hands. Brent tried the front door first. I heard the rattle, then the pause. He turned the knob again, then knocked. Not hard yet. I opened the door just enough to see their faces. Confused, a little impatient. but not scared. Not yet. Malia tried to smile. Did something happen with the door? Brent stepped forward. You could have told us you were changing the locks. I didn't respond. I held up the envelope. What's that? He asked, eyes narrowing. It's everything you forgot to ask permission for, I said. Malia shifted her weight. We need to get inside. You don't live here, I replied, calm as my kitchen clock. Brent's voice dropped. Come on, Mom. Let's be reasonable. I said. 6 months ago. I shut the door. No slam. Just enough pressure to say this is over. I didn't check to see if they left right away. I didn't need to. Instead, I sat on the couch, Lyle's photo beside me, and listened to the silence settle like dust. Then a knock, not from them, but louder, firmer, official. I stood and opened the door to 2 officers on the porch. The taller officer did the talking. The other stood behind him, arms crossed, eyes scanning the house like he already knew the story. We received a call about a possible unlawful eviction, he said. Do you mind if we come in and talk? I nodded once and stepped aside. I didn't offer them coffee. I didn't have any left to offer. They sat at the kitchen table, the same spot where Lyle used to read the paper every morning. I handed over the folder deed tax statements, utility history notarized, will all clipped neatly and in order. The younger officer flipped through it first. He stopped at the yellow sticky note I'd forgotten was still there. Explain this. He didn't ask. The senior officer nodded slowly. You're the sole owner of the property? Yes. And the other party, Brent and his wife, how long have they been here? 6 months. No lease, no rent, no permission for changes. He leaned back. They forwarded mail here. That complicates it. But your documentation, it's solid. Outside, I saw Malia pacing beside the car, phone in hand. Brent leaned against the hood, arms folded, jaw tight. The officers stepped back out with me and called them over. Mr. and Mrs. Jameson, the senior officer, said, calm but firm. We've reviewed the paperwork. This is a private residence. You have no legal right to entry without the owner's consent. Brent tried to speak, but the officer cut him off. You can leave voluntarily today or face formal trespassing charges. Your choice. Malia's voice cracked. She can't just throw us out. We're family. The officer glanced at me, then back at her. Family's not a lease agreement. Brent didn't look at me. He just turned, opened the back door of their car, and started loading bags. They didn't speak to me as they drove away. The porch light flickered as I stepped back inside. I didn't turn it off. I walked into my bedroom, my room again, and sat on the edge of the bed they tried to erase. Then I reached for the scratched frame on the nightstand and smiled. The silence after they left was heavier than their presence ever was. No footsteps in the hallway. No TV blaring from the living room. Just the hum of the fridge, the tick of the kitchen clock, and the faint creak of wood settling into peace. I opened the door to my bedroom slowly, like I was visiting someone else's space. The smell of paint still clung to the air, flat, cold, unfamiliar. The curtains were gone. The dresser had been moved. The walls half gray, half rose, like a memory caught mid-erasure. I didn't cry. I just got to work. First, I dragged the dresser back where it belonged. One of the legs scraped against the floorboard, leaving a new mark. I didn't care. Every home has scars. Then I unpacked the old photo of Lyle, our anniversary trip to Oregon, both of us sunburned, smiling, like we knew something no one else did. I set it on the nightstand, right where it used to live. Next, I found the rolled-up blueprint Brent had left behind, still wedged behind the bookshelf. Their dream kitchen, their open concept vision. I stared at it for a long moment, then lit the burner on the stove and fed the paper to the flame one edge at a time. It curled and blackened without protest. The chair by the window had new scratches on the armrest. The bookshelf was misaligned. The comforter wasn't mine. I took it off and retrieved the faded quilt from the bin in the garage. the one with the stitched corners and worn fabric that still smelled faintly of lavender and old books. When I laid it across the bed, the room stopped looking like a place someone else had borrowed. It looked like mine. I opened the window to let the stale air out and stood for a moment, watching the breeze lift the edges of the curtain. A sparrow landed on the fence outside, shook its wings, and settled in. I did the same. Then I turned toward the kitchen to make a fresh pot of coffee and noticed something in the mailbox flag raised. The house is quiet now, but not empty. It holds breath again, rhythm. The ordinary creak of the hallway, the soft groan of the porch step when I walk out for the paper, the click of the coffee pot as it finishes its brew, sounds that belong to me. 3 weeks have passed. I haven't seen Brent or Malia. No calls. No cars parked across the street, pretending not to watch. Just stillness. I wake when I want. I move at my own pace, and for the first time in months, the house doesn't flinch under someone else's weight. This morning, I poured coffee into my favorite mug, the one with the chipped rim that Lyle gave me after we signed the final loan on this house. He said I should drink from it every day we lived here. I never stopped. I carried it to the table and sat in the same chair I always do, where the morning light hits the floor just right. Outside, the garden's gone a bit wild, but I let it. I like the way the green spills over now. Not everything has to be neat to be safe. Then I heard the soft clatter of the mailbox and the slide of paper hitting metal. I waited a moment before walking out. Inside was a single envelope. No return address, but I knew the handwriting. Brent. The loops of his B's too wide, the tail of his Y always too long. I didn't open it. I walked back inside, set the envelope in the drawer beside the salt, and closed it gently. Then I picked up my phone, opened his contact, and hit delete. The porch light still works. I keep it on at night, but not for them. Maybe one day someone else will knock. Someone who sees me, not just the deed. Someone who understands what it means to build a life, then protect it, nail by nail, breath by breath. Until then, I'll sit with my coffee and my name and the silence I earned.